Now with news that a fourth person has died this week of a fatal stabbing. Theresa May announced plans to hold an emergency summit with police chiefs to deal with the shocking surge in knife crime. And as the debate continues over how to keep our streets safe, Stephen Mellor, a convicted murderer, is warning youngsters of the dangers of following in his own footsteps. And after she led the way in transforming Glasgow from one of the UK's most violent cities, we're also joined by the former director of Scotland's Violence Reduction Unit, Karyn McCluskey. Welcome to both of you. Thank you for being here to talk about this today. And Stephen, I wanted to start with you first of all, because your family life, you had 5 brothers, 5 sisters. Yes. It was a really busy household. Your parents worked every hour just to make ends meet. At 13, you were kicked out of school for fighting, and this really was where the problem started. So what was life like for you once you got kicked out of school?
When I got kicked out of school, my life tended to spiral downhill. I was never approached to go back into education.
Yeah.
No one ever contacted my mum and dad to say, look, he needs to get an education. So I was basically left at my own free will in the daytime. I was hanging around in similar crowds to myself that had been kicked out of school. So then you get into this pool of kids that have got behavioural problems, and then you try to rise to the top of that. So you try to be the worst one of them, to try and be the leader of that gang, and from there your life just tends to go...
go from bad to worse. And at the age of 15 was when you first started carrying a knife?
Yes, I got my first prison sentence at 15.
Right.
For a Section 18, but I think we started carrying weapons, be it a hammer, a knife, regularly, and it didn't seem to faze us in any way. It didn't seem to be a problem.
And it was part of the norm, I imagine, for the gang that you were in. You described that time as feeling trapped.
Yes, I think at the time you feel like you've no option, you've no way out. We didn't trust authority. We couldn't speak to police, we can't speak to probation. You couldn't tell your parents because you'd be in trouble for doing what you were doing. And it felt like at that time there was absolutely no option. Well,
at 18, you were involved with the killing of John Dookie, and this was in '97. He died 2 days after an attack over territory between Preston drug dealers. You served 14 years. You say there's no bigger critic of what you did than yourself.
No, I can never forgive myself for what I've done, but that's inspiring me to do what I'm doing now. I've got to live with my past every single day of my life. I wake up with it, I go to sleep with it.
So what are you doing now? What difference are you making?
What I've done, me and my business partner, Barry Aswell, we've set up Youth On, and what we've got in there, we've got pool tables, games, music rooms, like a Charlie Sloth fire in the booth, if you will, a study room, and we're going to try and get the kids onto apprenticeships. We're not going to put pressure on them. We're not authority.
A lot of people are saying that since 2010, 24,000 police officers have been cut in England and Wales, and in that same period, knife crime has soared to its highest level since the Second World War. There were over 42,000 knife offences last year. I mean, that doesn't seem a coincidence to me. Is that what we need? Is it down to more policing?
I can't say it's down to more policing. Police presence will reduce some crime, but I think it's early intervention into these children's lives at the right time by the right people. These kids don't trust authority, they don't trust police.
Yeah. If
a police officer pulls up in my area, the kids will run off.
Yeah.
There's no interaction between the kids and the police anymore, and no trust. They need to build that bridge. What we're setting up here at the Youth Zone, I'm handing out vouchers to the police to give to the kids so they can have a bit of interaction and get that trust back.
OK, well, this seems like a really good time to speak to you, Karyn, because it seems that you had a solution that did great things in Glasgow. And this is Scotland's Violence Reduction Unit, and it was set up in 2005 to tackle a spate of knife crime that saw Glasgow become Europe's murder capital. In 2004, there were 137 homicides in Scotland. By 2016, the number had halved, more than halved, in fact, to 62. So what did you do?
We did everything.
Right.
This is a really wicked problem. There are no simple solutions to it. And we had a bit of a zeitgeist. Actually, it was in 2004. We had a bit of a zeitgeist. We had the highest, rate of murder. We had the UN coming out and saying that we were the most violent country. And we had, A&E consultants, and we had teachers, and we had everybody else just saying we've had enough. And you can either optimise your current system and do a wee bit more of everything else that you're doing, or you can have a complete paradigm shift. And we changed it completely. We started to talk about prevention. We talked about it as a public health problem. We got everybody involved, because beside me is a cast of thousands of people. Early years people supporting parents, teachers keeping kids in school, loads of people diverting people from the criminal justice system. It's everything.
You seem to go to the source of the problem as well. I read about a situation where you basically invited gang members all into one room to listen to a mother whose child had been killed by gang crime?
Well, I mean, what you're talking about is SERVE, which was a community initiative to reduce violence, and it's a very complicated thing to do, so I'm not going to be able to do it justice. But we pretty much motivated all these people into the courtroom, and it was just because it was a big space. And we had the police standing up and saying, look, we don't want to be going to your door to arrest you or to tell your mum that you've been killed. We want to offer you a way out. And we had a mum who stood up and she articulated what had happened to her and her son. And she said, look, I go over into my son's room every single day and I will never get over it. And can I tell you could hear people crying in the back of the courtroom. And we had the community there as well. And we gave them a way out.
But that's what I was going to say, because you've both said the same thing here. You're saying that you felt trapped. You're saying that until you gave people an option, there was nothing, they had no option, so it was the only way.
Listen, there's no kid in primary one today. The kids that you see later on, you know, aren't sitting in the classroom at age 5 saying, I would like to grow up to be a murderer or a drug addict or in a gang. They need hope and aspiration and a life that's predictable and understandable and manageable, where they have, you know, a sense of belonging. And it sounds, we keep on articulating the problem. I hear great people like you and I hear Akala speaking and I think we know what the problem is. It's our ability to deliver the change that's a challenge.
And then you've got people saying, well, maybe, you know, we need more prisons, we need more police, we should be banging these people up and they should be put away.
Yeah, well, let me just tell you, America's tried that, and if America had worked, they would have no crime. So they jail 3.5 million a year. I don't think we need more jails. We're already jailing lots and lots of people. And when I go into the prisons and I'm speaking to lots of the, you know, young men and women who often have done some dreadful things, their stories always start with, see when I was 5, see when I was 5, you know, see when I was 7, see when I was 11. Their stories start early on. And lots of the teachers know when these kids are really struggling, they're traumatised. We should be intervening then, before the drama becomes a crisis. And that's not to say that we shouldn't be addressing some of the challenges that we have right now.
Absolutely. And Stephen, what would you say to anybody, you know, who's got a child, a young adult that's involved in gangs, that at this moment in time is feeling trapped, can't find a way out, is carrying a weapon because that's what is done and that's what's expected? What would you say to them?
I think there is options out there, but we all need to be singing off the same sheet. We need to work alongside the police, probation services, and we all need to bridge the trust for these kids. I mean, you gave me the figure before about 40-something thousand. 4,500 of them was under 18, and they're only the ones reported. There's people stabbed and there's never reported. It doesn't go in. They won't go into hospital because it's bad altercations that they'll get in trouble. And it's just an epidemic that's spiralling out of control. But now it's hitting the suburbs. It's starting to get more press. It's everyday life in big cities. You see knives all the time and it needs to be addressed, and it needs to be addressed right. The government needs to give funding to the right places. OK. And Karyn, final word from you.
This is going to be long-term. There are no short-term solutions to that, and it's not just one thing. And we're going to need to be quite brave in setting out a long-term plan for this. You know, 10, 15 years. But it is absolutely possible. And Scotland's shown, you know, that it can be done, but we're not finished yet.
Yeah, it's incredible the work that you did. It really is. It's amazing. And thank you very much for being here.